Hello there, people of the internet. All magazines being recorded today are 20 rounds or less. So I was out talking to, well, I'm not sure what I would call him. I was out talking to somebody, and this somebody is not a gun guy, but they see the writing on the wall, and they're like, hey, the world is scary. I should get a gun. So he asked me, hey, you're a gun guy. What should I get? And just me being here inside of the United States, if you want just a rifle for practical purposes in general, I told him, hey, get yourself an AR-15. So he asked me, okay, well, if I get myself an AR-15, what should it be chambered in? And I'm like, well, that's a good point. They make AR-15s in 7.62x39, and you get yourself an AR-10 in either, 6.65 Creedmoor or 7.62 NATO. Sorry, a little bit of a brain fart there. There's just a lot of different varieties for different cartridges that you can get. So I told him, hey, get yourself one in 223.556, and that'll serve most of your purposes. And so he kind of looked at me. He was like, okay, why 223.556? And I kind of stopped, and I paused, and I was like, that is a really good question. That is a question that you just asked me that is so good that I'm going to go ahead and make a full-on video on it. Why 223.556? Why not go with some other variety of cartridge, not just out of an AR platform, but just in general? So let's go ahead and let's talk about it. The 223.556 cartridge, if we're talking mil-spec ball ammo, is going to be either a 55 grain bullet traveling at 3,200 feet per second or a 62 grain bullet traveling at about 3,000 feet per second. So that's a small bullet, but man, is it traveling at tremendous velocities. The 223.556 is designed to get its stopping capabilities from velocity and not from mass, not like a lot of other projectiles are. Like 45 ACP, that's a 230 grain bullet that's not traveling very fast. It relies on mass to be able to have a bunch of stopping power behind that projectile. 223.556 is kind of the opposite of that. So I have a light bullet traveling very, very fast. So one of the big reasons why you would get a 223.556 chambered rifle is because this right here is what our military uses, and as a result, this ammunition is very, very predominant here inside the United States. Every single gun store, every outlet store, every sporting goods store, everywhere that sells ammunition, with the exception of like Walmart, everywhere that sells ammunition is going to have 223.556 in stock, just because it is such an unbelievable popular cartridge here in the United States. Now that's another reason it is a very popular cartridge. If something happens and you find yourself needing some ammunition, odds are you will be able to find 223.556 from either a store, from somebody else, from, I don't know, whatever situation. If you're scavenging and you have to scavenge in whatever the situation you find yourself is in, just whatever happens, if you manage to come across ammunition, the odds of it being a 223 or a 556 cartridge are actually pretty gosh darn significant. Back whenever the 223 was developed, before it was a military round, it was designed to be a varmint cartridge. Whenever the military adopted it in its 55 grain projectile state, it was a, like I said, 55 grain bullet traveling about 3,200 feet per second, but that was seen to be not quite heavy or powerful enough not to do the things that the military wanted to do, especially during that time period. We're not going to go into a full history lesson on that, but they did swap over to a 62 grain projectile to kind of add a little bit of weight to their 223.556 cartridges. However, despite the fact that they add a little bit of weight to it, this right here is still an incredibly lightweight, incredibly small cartridge, especially in comparison to some other intermediate cartridges out there. If I were to take a 223.556 and I were to compare it to a 30 caliber 7.62x39 from the AK, this is way smaller and way lighter weight than this right here, and it's also traveling significantly faster. Since the 223.556 travels significantly faster than another intermediate cartridge like the 7.62x39, it is going to be far more capable out at longer distances than 7.62x39. You can push the 5.56 out to 600, 700 yards pretty gosh darn easily. However, for 7.62x39, it takes somebody who really knows what they're doing to be able to shoot out at distances with this 30 cal projectile, simply because Well, it drops like a rock, and the wind deflects it significantly, simply because it is not traveling all that fast. It has a large surface area, being a 30 caliber round, as opposed to the 5.56, which is not a 30 caliber round. It's a 22 caliber round. The wind deflects this a lot less, and it is traveling a lot faster, so it doesn't drop as much. Gravity affects things at the same rate, the same speed. So if a bullet is traveling faster, then gravity is going to affect that bullet less. That's why it is a flatter shooting cartridge than something like the 7.62 x 39. But these are capable out at long distances, or at least distances that most people would be shooting at. I don't foresee a lot of us shooting past like 700 yards or so, which the 223 5.56 is absolutely capable of. I have seen people shoot regularly 223 5.56 out at 1,000 yards. As long as you have yourself a decent rifle and you can manage to make the shots with whatever optic or your really good sight or really good ability to see or whatever it is that you manage to do, you can send these pills out for some incredibly long ranges. So a 223 5.56, not a lot of mass. Out past like 400 or 500 yards, they lose the amount of velocity that is necessary for them to achieve the terminal ballistics that they are designed to achieve. So out past that point, you're basically just going to be poking a hole in whatever target it is that you shoot at. But that being said, you're still going to be poking a hole in whatever target it is that you shoot at. If you deem a handgun cartridge to be powerful enough to be able to defend yourself, then the argument for the 223 5.56, just poking a hole in something, is not really all that valid. So it's predominant, it's everywhere, it's a lightweight, light recoiling cartridge, excellent to train on if you are just getting into firearms. It's not very expensive, especially in comparison to some other rifle cartridges out there. Typically, especially if you buy yourself some surplus stuff, it's going to cost around 40 cents or so a shot, depending on whether or not you buy in bulk. And since it is a lightweight, light recoiling round, these right here can be, what's the word I'm looking for? You get really fast follow-up shots with these things. So even though it is not a powerhouse of a cartridge, you can still hit things at significant distances. And if whatever you're hitting doesn't go down, since there is such a lack of recoil with this rifle, you can set another round onto your target pretty quick. That poor target down there has been through so much. But there we go. I just sent 5 rounds of 223 5.56. I did miss one. I saw one hit the ground back there, but we're at about 40 yards, and that's about a 12-inch steel plate. And I got 4 out of 5 rounds onto the target. Now, if you are the kind of person who doesn't like firearms like this right here, this is an AR platform, PSA upper on a KP15 lower, look up the What Would Stoner Do project if you don't know what that is. But if you don't like firearms like this right here, and you are an old school military kind of guy who likes the wood and steel, and that's just your forte, guess what? They make 223 5.56 rifles in your flavor as well. This right here is a Ruger Mini 14, obviously copying the, well, I say copying, I use that term very loosely, copying the M14. We have done plenty of videos on this right here. We're not going to talk about the Ruger Mini 14. But this right here also chambered in 223 5.56. I believe with this being a 1980 production, it's going to have a 1 in 10 twist barrel. So you want to pay attention to what kind of projectiles you're shoving through this thing. I know for most of your modern ARs, they're going to have a 1 in 7, 1 in 8, or 1 in 9 twist barrel, so they're going to be able to stabilize a plethora of different options. However, for the most part, most people have either 55 grain or 62 grain projectiles, so you're not going to have any issues stabilizing those. So let's go ahead, send a couple of rounds downrange, and well, we have ourselves a Mini 14. These are the same exact rounds, 55 grain 223, and same exact kind of, well, same exact concept of a system. Semi-automatic, just sending the lead. Alright, there we go. We made all 5 rounds onto that target. I do like the aperture sights on the Mini 14, but I like the ghost ring sight on the carry handle for the AR platform just a little bit better, just because the ghost ring sight is a little bit larger of a hole than what we have on the back of the receiver right here. Both of these rifles take external magazines. It's one of the best parts about these rifles. External magazines, if you get yourself a standard capacity AR mag, that's going to be 30 rounds. However, that right there is a 20-round mag because YouTube does not like standard capacity magazines. But of course, with it being external mag, you can throw whatever capacity you want in this thing. Then you make 100-round drums for the AR platform, and I think for the Mini 14 as well. But whatever capacity you want, literally just take your mag out, put a new one in whenever you run out of ammunition, already have your mags loaded, and, well, they're just very good options. So lightweight, very predominant, find them everywhere. The platforms that they are ran in are very ergonomic, very capable platforms that can touch out to some really significant distances. They're not very expensive. They come in flavors of people who like new stuff with the rails and the optics and the polymer and whatnot, or people who like the old school wood and steel stuff. So whatever it is that you want, you can find a rifle chambered in 223 5.56, so you can go ahead and send some of that lead downrange. It's not an overly powerful round, like I said. Some people do not like the 55 or 62 grain projectiles because they don't deem them to be all that adequate at immediately stopping threats. So sometimes people will actually bump themselves up to like a 77 plus grain projectile. You got to pay attention to the twist rate inside of your barrel. Make sure that you can stabilize heavy bullets like that. But a 77 plus grain projectile, especially some like critical defense or something like that, some sort of expanding bullet or fragmentation bullet or some sort of non-full metal jacket, those do absolute wonders at destroying soft targets, whether or not you're shooting at fruit or watermelon or water jugs or whatever soft target it is that you decide to fire at. Those do a fantastic job at putting a lot of energy onto that target to go ahead and stop that threat. Now 7.62x39, this right here is a significantly more powerful cartridge, and it, as far as price goes, it is going to cost you roughly the same. Not nearly as available as 223 5.56, especially considering that our military dishes out a lot of 5.56 surplus onto the market. But even though these right here are not quite as predominant as 223 5.56 or the platforms that run 223 5.56, you can still find 7.62x39. So that would be a really good option to go with as well if you decide to go ahead and get yourself an intermediate cartridge and you deem the 223 5.56 to not be all that great. Bear in mind, these right here are heavier cartridges. Of course, that being said, since they're heavier cartridges, about twice the weight or so as a 223 5.56, you're getting yourself a significant amount more power. So if you're like me and you're blind and you're not going to shoot past 400 yards anyway, maybe something like this would be a really good way to go. In this case, let's go ahead and send some 7.62x39 downrange and see what happens, I guess. Oh, okay, well, nothing happened on that one. I guess it probably helped if we actually chambered around. Did we actually chamber around that time? We did not. Okay, this magazine's a little bit on the grody side. Fantastic, we chambered around that time. This magazine, I got at a yard sale a while back. It's not the best or most reliable magazine. Now, since this is a more powerful round, you are going to have more recoil. You're going to have slower follow-up shots. But even then, you can get yourself some pretty fast follow-up shots in comparison to something that would be like a full power rifle cartridge. Like if I were to bring out an M1 Grand and 30-06, I could run this a lot faster and a lot more capably in terms of close range shooting with fast follow-up shots. I could do that a lot better with a 7.62x39 than I could with a 30-06. Now that being said, I'm actually kind of curious myself as to how much of a difference a 223 5.56 and a 7.62x39 would operate with that recoil. Yeah, okay, I might run that test later on. Anyway, folks, thanks for watching. I'm sure that a lot of you already knew a lot of what I was just talking about whenever it comes to why someone would pick a 223 and a 5.56 as opposed to something else here in the United States. If you're in another country, all bets are off. You know, whatever it is that you feel like picking, go ahead and pick that. But here in the U.S., if you're looking for just a practical do-everything rifle, and AR in 223 5.56 can pretty much do everything besides hunting like large game. So if you're going to go hunt large game, you might want to get yourself something a little bit more powerful. The beauty about the AR is you can swap out the uppers for a variety of different cartridges, and you can get yourself some pretty powerful cartridges for the AR platform. Okay, well, I think I've rambled on long enough. Thanks for watching. I appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share, description below. Link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. You guys go off, have yourself a fantastic day. I'll see you all in the next episode. Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. The poor man's Garen. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.